Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Stevens here as we look at some weather, and what a wacky couple of days it's been. It's unfortunate what's happening to the West with the fires, with the evacuations, with the infrastructure lost. Australia has gone through that within the year. It hurts in many ways to see that kind of destruction and the inability or the unbelievability of how widespread it gets and how quickly that happens. The fires have burned tens of thousands of acres just in the last 24 hours. And from the weather perspective, I just don't see a whole lot of relief. The one gift for many of us not by the fires is that with the cold weather that has settled in across the southwestern states and Colorado and now into the middle part of the nation, is that there is an offshore wind, and that has blown a large portion of that smoke, at least the hot stuff, the fresh stuff, those plumes, out to sea. And so they, kind of get diluted. They cool off. The ash falls out there before it gets swept back in and underneath the trough of low pressure that is now anchored in Utah, Colorado right now. Good to see you on there from Ventura, California. Oh, bless your heart, Casey. It's I don't see that ending for the better part of 2 weeks. And even then, we're kind of at the whim of the models for what they want to do. This cold that was coming, that was very well forecast. That was anticipated 14 days out ahead of time to within an error of just 24 hours. And the intensity, the location, it was all spot on. So kudos to the models for that. And some of them try to bring in a weak cutoff low in Northern California in about 10, 11, 12 days' time, but that's certainly no guarantee because that would be a bit of a weak event. Even once it does arrive, it doesn't arrive with a lot of moisture. It just kind of would cool things down. But also with the arrival of those kinds of disturbances, it tends to stir the pot, and that means you simply bring the winds. So we'll start with AccuWeather, U.S. pumpkin forecast, because October's not that far away, and you don't want to be doing the pumpkin carving, right on Halloween Day. You kind of like to have it on site a little bit ahead of time, but apparently it has been a bumper crop for pandemic-weary customers. So the U.S. pumpkin farmers see a bumper crop this year, and that's wonderful news for them. We've got to have some crops that are, exceptional, even if they aren't necessarily eating ones. All right, San Francisco, that was 9 this morning. Actually, it was 9:09, that being today, but 7 hours ago that was posted. So that's just before noontime. Just how dense the smoke was as you look at cords across the bay and into the bridge area. Just kind of eerie, kind of apocalyptic, just kind of just scary that the fires are that intense, that the smoke is just that crazy. Don't need a time machine to see climate change. All they need is a window. So says Mary. And my reply to that was to show her my window, which was, hell, let's just go on in here. Let's blow that up. That was my garden this morning. So it's hot in other places, and others it's just snow. And this, I don't mind snow, and I don't honestly mind the cold. But on the 8th and 9th of September, it can be called nothing but the White Death, because it's all gone. Everything that was just now coming to maturity because I'm so high in elevation, everything it's a late bloomer. It's a late blooming garden. So it was goodbye to that. And yesterday was spent harvesting and trying to put into pots and to bring in, and it was a bit of a struggle, and it was probably an 80% loss ultimately. It just was. So all of that work just gone. It's just gone. So, global warming has its upsides and its downsides. And I shouldn't even say global warming because I would take that to task and show them a blizzard in September. All right, California statewide fire summary, 14,000 firefighters battling 28 wildfires, and that was as of late morning. In total, that have burned over 2.5 million acres in Cali alone. 2,000 plus fire engines, 95 assigned aircraft, 282 fire crews, 196 bulldozers, and 300 water tenders. So it's an enormous task dealing with that. On the other side of that is just the floodwaters happening in Sudan after the rains, as has become a theme for this year. Just won't end. If you're dry, you're dry. And if you're wet, you're really, really wet. And those folks that are on the boundaries of that are where we're finding productivity. It's kind of this oscillation, and this has been a theme that I've talked about over the years when we talk about geoengineering. And if there's even a sliver of that in the mix, that means it's kind of disturbed the baseline of the situation of the planet. But nevertheless, we've really taken the productivity out of the land with these incredible droughts and these impressive floods. And what you end up with at the end of those two events is a very, very small harvest. And that's going to be the situation in a lot of places. So it was kind of cool to see the bumper pumpkin crops. But then I really haven't eaten pumpkin in quite a few months. All right, Tulsa, 70-plus degree temperatures continue to inch their way westward across eastern Oklahoma at mid-afternoon as they began to warm up as the cold air kind of moved on in. Bartlesville, Claremore, Fort Smith. Fort Smith still hasn't really had the front push on through. Poteau at 88, Sallisaw 86, and Tulsa enjoying a bit of a break. And I know when I was working in Tulsa, I certainly enjoyed those cooler weathers. And there it is, out into the Panhandle, 30s as winterish kind of weather has shown up versus near 90 as you get way down towards McAllister and then I believe it's Altus, if I'm remembering my Oklahoma geography. It's been a bit. Again, look out of San Francisco with the red haze in the sky. And the Bay Area Weather Service saying is the winds generally weaken aloft. Gravity will take over as the primary vertical transport of snow, meaning gravity is going to begin to pull it down. As you get into a still atmosphere, just like with a glass, and you've got something in there and it comes to still, the particulates will eventually settle out. So as the winds weaken aloft, suspended smoke will descend closer to the surface and could lead to darker skies and worsening air quality. Today, this is beyond the scope of our models, so we rely on your reports. And I know as somebody working in a weather office, we were always thrilled to get on-person or on-site reports, and this was long before Twitter, Facebook even was in someone's imagination. So set yield expectations after frost and freeze events. Freezes of 28 degrees Fahrenheit or less for a couple of hours will cause whole corn plant death. This will become apparent in the next 48 hours, probably by Friday. This is something we'll be able to talk a little more in depth about the extent of the cold. And I'll pop over here, and this is where the cold is right now. You can see from Casper through Laramie, Cheyenne, Scottsbluff, along the front range of the Colorado Rockies. This was midday. This was 18Z, so noontime mountain. And then even into Amarillo, Dumas, Texas, running in the upper 30s. So straight up chilly, an abrupt change in the seasons, whereas this was triple digits on Sunday, and here we are Wednesday, completely different scenario. So we refresh this, bring this to current, and we still have a few 90s in the lower Mississippi Valley, and then the 80s trying to push, or have continued to push into the New England area, but otherwise it is just widespread cool all the way, not quite to El Paso, but certainly in a far southern New Mexico, where we've got 40s, and even California, despite the heat, despite the drought. And some of these temperatures might be impacted by the inability of the sunshine to make it to the surface of the ground. It's just straight up reflected back into space. 108 in Searchlight, Nevada yesterday, and 8 in Burgess Junction, Wyoming this morning for the nation's temperatures. The Atlantic remains a bit active. Renee and Paulette out there. There's still tropical storms. Winds sustained at in the 50 knot range, or not quite 60 miles an hour. And then Renee just a little farther to the east, a little bit weaker, and then still another wave pushing off the African coastline, just not quite to Dakar yet. So we'll watch this. The season has been incredibly productive, but as far as strong storms outside of Laura, they've been punies. They get a name and they go on, and undoubtedly because tomorrow we cross the midpoint of the season, we will dive deep into the Greek alphabet as we run out of given names for this year's storms. Look at this plume of moisture. Look at all this water coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, up from Mexico itself, and it's held in place, or at least drawn up. Like you prime the pump, you get that suction going, and that's exactly what's happening with this deep trough out west. And this baby's going to sit here for another 24 hours. Snowflakes in the San Juans in southwestern Colorado, maybe some in southern Wyoming, probably not a lot up here though. But what that does is it just continues to draw the moisture up northbound, and that is such a gift. Such a gift for Texas, all the way through Texas and in portions of Kansas, across Iowa. Iowa devastated by that derecho event 17 days ago. And they could use some rain just to try to resurrect what's growing there. All right, this is the full day's loop of what's happening in Oregon and the fires, because they have explosive is just about the best word. And it's this fire up here. You could even see in that infrared imagery, that plume, this guy right through here. We'll go through the full 200 frame loop here. But here's another one south of St. Helens. But boom, you can see that grow as the infrared just goes hot, and that's why we see the saturated pixels of black. And then that plume blows up and then drifts out to sea, thankfully. But then just more and more fires in around Ashland, Medford, into Northern California, now into Idaho, a couple of showing up in Idaho as well, and through Oregon. It's just ridiculous. I'll pop down a little bit farther south right here, come into the Bay Area and through Central California and load those babies up, and you can see all of these other fires, and they're just massive. Just massive. It's just, yeah, we've got weeks to go of this. We really have weeks to go. This isn't going to end anytime soon. There's just nothing coming outside of labor and persistence by the firefighters to get through this. There's just no assistance coming from Mother Nature. This low is locked in place in the Four Corners area, and this has allowed that Texas moisture, that plume of water, just to roll north. I want to do this one first. No, I don't. I want to go right on here. And here's where the rain is, all the way from the Rio Grande through the north. And it's made very slight progress eastward. I mean, it's just kind of hanging out and raining in the same places. Now let's go back to totals. So from Odessa in around El Paso, inch and a third. Midland had an inch and a half last night. And then as we move farther east, the rainfall totals got a little bit grander. As let me see if I can zoom in here. I've got to toggle the data, and then I can bring it back on in here. You know, the tricks of the trade. Some of the Austins, 2.5 inches. Round Rock, down towards San Antonio. Not quite as much, but hey, look at that. That's a 3-inch total, inch and a bit, 2 inches. You know, so highly localized, very, very heavy rains having fallen through that area, 2.5 off to Richland Springs, Brady, on into, it's just, there's 3 inches as we get out to Brownwood. 3.28, 2.8 inches. So there's some good soakers. And as dry as it's been, San Angelo on the verge of drought all year long, 4 inches west of town, 3.5 to the northeast part of town, 5.47, 7.58. I don't know if that's legit. Sometimes there's these random sites that just really blow up the totals, and you just kind of have to throw those away. But nonetheless, the rain keeps falling. There's Amarillo's at 2 point, or not quite a half inch, although some of the sites did. Dumas at a 2/3 of an inch, a little bit more, in fact, twice that as we move up to the north. So it's just been really, really generous with the rainfall. Unfortunately, it's a bit late. Most of the crops are already reached maturity, and they were forced into maturity because of heat and drought. But the rains have come, and maybe that'll help some of the winter pastures and enable the livestock to do some better foraging as we move through winter. So that's the rain. Let's see what I've got over on this one. Not much left over the snow in Colorado. Still some in the San Juans, but that low's spinning there, so I'd expect the chance of snow showers to hang in there for, what are we, Wednesday afternoon, probably another 24 hours. Another 24 hours. Risa over here. Rain is welcomed here always, and I would do that. I would absolutely concur with that, just because we can store it a little bit. We can, the ground soaks it up. They've got ponds to carry it and hold it for the cattle, and eventually it soaks in and the plants use it. So even if you escape the frost, and I hope you did, Risa, that you get that rain. Scott says, Karen, doesn't all that rain in super dry areas just run off? Occasionally. And as dry as it's been here, the soils are hydrophobic. They just don't receive the moisture, and that is the risk for a lot of big rains falling on clay soils and sandy soils, is that it just runs off. So in those scenarios, you need a gentle rain in the beginning, and then the heavier stuff can come. The gentle rain kind of softens up the soils. It relaxes it so it can begin to receive the moisture and begin to transmit it down. But it just can't come too fast in the other scenarios, because there isn't the biomass on top to act as a bit of a sponge to hold it. That just isn't quite there. So the north winds all the way through Kansas with the light rains, north winds through Iowa, temperatures up below 50 degrees, so the crops have halted any progression, and then we move east of the front through the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys, and it's hot and humid, and they're just anticipating the arrival of the event. And here's the slew of high pressures. Some are small and some are large, but nonetheless they are continuing to press to the southeast. All right, temperatures. Let's reset this. The computers have been shut. I don't want to say shut down, because I haven't really looked to see exactly where they are, but we completely missed the 12Z run today. At least the Americans did, and that was a little. I don't want to say alarming, but it was like, I'm a void. I'm missing my data. So the heat or the cold kind of takes its departure, it leaves off to the east, and then much of the nation returns to warmer than normal temperatures. But then it really appears as if there's another slug of chilly air slated to come on down here. When is that? 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. September, and this one progresses all the way to the east. It doesn't get absorbed and then retreat up towards the Great Lakes states. So there's another round of cool weather. Southwest looks like it misses it, but what I'm seeing is it really isn't making an incursion into California and the Southwest where they could really use that moisture. It just doesn't appear to be there. So let's see if I really want to. Oh yes, water. Let's go to U.S. total. Can I do that, Scott? Regions West. That was the middle of the nation. So if this baby, and I'm just going to manhandle this, bring this in, and it really doesn't bring much into California. Just no, and I really don't need an animation out of that. So Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and the points east, yes, but dry from North Dakota across the Central Rockies and nearly the entirety of the Golden State. Not much in store for the next 10 days, and that's. I wish I had better news. I really did. I really did. Yes, we did escape the frost. I saw one of your observing stations really nearby, Risa, that was at 34 this morning. So I was hoping for the best for your location. And I have to leave a cactus outside tonight. I had to haul mine in too. They're big and they're prickly, and I had big old gloves on there, and I really just don't like handling those things. They're not fun. Hey, there's the sun coming in. Look at that. It's getting lower and lower in the sky as it sweeps off to the south. As it crosses, we have an equinox in about 11 days. We pass the midpoint where the northern hemisphere drops into more nighttime hours, more darkness than daylight. All right, have another perspective coming up in just a little less than 45 minutes. I'm going to talk about how to prepare for October and the kind of things that are being telegraphed that we're going to go through. And some are exciting, some are a little tenuous, and some are just kind of downright scary. So I want to address a few of those and how we can see through the mirage that the media is always painting us, a little bit of a, disturbing. They're trying to making somebody evil, and we'll kind of talk about no equinox. Come on, Risa, we got to go through this because I know you love Christmas. All right. I'll see you in about 45 minutes. Otherwise, back tomorrow. Notice that straight line of the fire, straight up. Yeah, straight. Yeah. There's more coming, and we're going to watch these for a couple of days. We're going to watch them for a lot of days. I think we're going to be under fire fatigue here. If you're out west, that's really going to be a challenging situation. Is fatigue, and we've got fatigue from COVID, fatigue from this, fatigue from that, and this just really adds another exclamation point. It's as William Cohen said, it was an eco-terrorism that's upon us, and we've all been victims to that, to those acts. Okay, I'll catch you in about 45 minutes, and we'll have another discussion there. Come on back, and we'll have a chat on how to get through October and the looming election. I'll see you then.